As you guys know, last week we kicked off our new series, Building a Marriage that will last a lifetime. And we introduced, for some of us maybe, the biblical truth and fact that God has made us both male and female, and we talked about that. I started thinking there's nothing more clear to those who are having the ability to have children as you're raising your kids to see the difference. As many of you know, I've been coming here a long time. I had the privilege of raising both of my boys, Brady and Peyton, and they were all boys. They were boys. And my wife would even say, you know what, I always thought we'd have a girl in the home, and both the boys are like, we don't need no girls in the home. We're just enjoying everything boy life. Well, some of you know, most of you may know, that 7.5 years ago, we adopted Landry Kate. And I would tell you, having a girl in the home is very clear. There's a difference between girls and boys, right? And you see this as you're growing up. As they're growing up. As a matter of fact, both of my boys, one's in college, one's married and away. When they came home and come home for holidays or whatever, and Landry's running around, my older one's like, how do you put up with that? That's just, it's just talking, and it's just this. And I was like, remember, you grew up in a boy home, and boy, and girls are different. He goes, I know, like that. So it was just so hilarious. We got the incredible news that my son, who's married, he and his wife, Kaylee, are having their first baby. We found that news out. That's awesome. The best part was they're having a girl. And I was talking to him individually, and I was like, dude, just get ready. It is completely a different world. Why? Because God has created boys and girls, men and women differently. They are created differently, and so these differences, as we're going to look at today, are how men and women feel and function differently. Especially when the two become one, we have to understand that each one of us as male and female, that we have God-designed feelings and how we have emotions, and then also how we function is absolutely different. But here's the part that some of us have to get. We talked about this last week. We go back to Genesis. We go back to the Bible. We believe God has created us differently, so that if we choose to get married, then you have the ability for the two to become one, and that's only going to happen in this unity sense if they have been created differently. So let me read to you again Ephesians chapter 5, 28 and following. In the same way, husbands are to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hates his own flesh, but provides and cares for it, just as Christ does for the church, since we are members of his body. And then remember from last week, Paul goes back, he hearkens back to Genesis' account. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This mystery is profound, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. We said last week, as Paul is giving these instructions in the home, when he comes to the husband and wife to become one relationship, there was nothing in culture he could really compare it to, so he compares it to this profound mystery of Christ and his church. And then he says, as we looked at last week, that the husband is to be willing to die for his wife. That's the way that he was to express his love. So we talked about all of that last week. And then last week we ended with this, and I told you we'd come back. We're coming back this week. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33. To sum it up, Paul says, each one of you is to love his wife as himself, and the wife is to respect her husband. And when you first look at this, you should ask the question, how come he doesn't tell the wife to love, and how come he doesn't tell the husband to respect? He gets very clear. He had this whole talking about husbands and wives and loving and submitting and the whole thing. And then he says, hey, just sum it up. Just going to sum the whole thing up. You've been created differently. And so the two become one. Husbands, make sure you love your wife. Wives, respect your husbands. Why would he do this? Why would he go through this whole thing? One is understanding of chromosomes. One is understanding how we were created. We're going to talk more specifically for that. But also in context, we always want to read the Bible in context. Talked about this last week. In this culture, this would be two things that are inherent in their creation, but also in this culture, we're spinning out of control. Why? Because the husbands, they didn't have to die for their wife. If they were choosing to get married, there was no sense of obligation to that woman. It was totally a male-dominated society. So for Paul to come and say, ho, ho, husbands, when you join together, now you're Christians, you're going to treat your wife as Christ has treated the church. Wives, respect. What would have been the worst part of being married if you were a female in that time? You were told who to marry. You didn't choose. There was no dates. You didn't go to Starbucks and fall in love. You were told who you were going to marry, and then they could treat you however you wanted to. Paul says, no, not in the Christian context. Here's what we're going to do. You've been created for this. This culture is going crazy. So here's a reminder. Husbands, love your wives as Christ has loved the church. Wives, respect your husbands. He goes into this not only because of creation, the chromosomes, but also culture. Now listen, men and women, of course, need both. But why this direct command? Why this reminder of this? Because beyond their culture, because of how we're created, listen to this, this is the lifeblood of each person. This is what fills you up. This is the fuel that keeps you going every day. Once you're married, the two become one. The husband must feel like he's respected. That's the lifeblood. The wife, absolutely, because how God's created her, must feel like she is unconditionally loved. So let's walk through this because this God designed two have become one. Now I do want to pause just for a second. Those of us who are single, we're choosing to be single. Maybe we're single again and we want to stay single. We need to always understand that the Bible is talking about marriage, but it doesn't say you have to be married. The Bible talks very clearly about those as Christians who have a calling to be single. They're perfectly fine being single. Then the question would be, yeah, but if God created husband and wives to meet each other's needs, what about the single person? Well, they have a calling to be single. If they feel like the Lord wants them to be single, guess what? As a Christian, the Lord now fills those needs in a profound, mysterious way, just like husband and wife. So let's look at why. Showing respect comes more naturally to men, so they are reminded to love. Showing respect is a man thing. They want it. And so it becomes more natural, so they're going to be reminded to love. Women have an emotional desire to know they are safe. So God has created women that when the two have become one, they have this emotional need to feel secure, to feel safe, to have a sense of this man who I've given my life to will protect me. So that's where, okay, I'm not normally going to show that type of unconditional love, but I've been reminded and commanded as a husband to do it. Oh, just like last week, it's exactly what she needs. Women function best when they are emotionally valued and treasured. This is their lifeblood. This is the fuel to get them through all challenges if they know, if they experience this emotional type of love. Also, showing love comes more naturally to women, so they are reminded to respect. In this culture, it was a huge reminder to respect their husbands. Understanding this, I also want to make sure, because I understand the culture we live in, this is not a blanket statement for when there is physical or mental abuse. This is not a blanket statement. This is understanding that the two have become one. And as Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7, says that husbands and wives are concerned. Husband and wife should be concerned about each other. So if there's abuse going on, then of course you get to a place where you are safe and you do not have to feel like, because I'm a Christian, I then have to respect that person in the sense of what he is doing to me. Do not hear Paul, the Bible, or me saying that. But in the sense of the challenges of normal marriages, the normal husbands and wives absolutely are to then be able to express to their husbands what they most need, which is this sense of honor, this sense of respect. Surveys are overwhelmingly support this. I don't need all kinds of surveys. I just do men's groups. And I can promise you in every men's group I've ever been in, we talk about this. I've never once had a man step up and say, you know what, I don't care about my wife respecting me. I just want her to love me. It's always, of course, she wants to love, but what they really need, how they're sometimes even viewing love, is this sense of respect, understanding, respect for what they do, respect for the provisions they make, respect for the things that they're called to do as a provider. They want to make sure that their wife is respecting them for that. Now again, make sure we understand, of course, a husband wants his wife to love them. Of course, a wife wants her husband to respect, but Paul goes to, let me just sum it up. That's what he says. You've been created with this void in creation because of chromosomes, because of how you're wired up. And so when the two become one, you got to make sure that you're filling each other up this way. Now, again, when you think about this, we are more naturally able to give what is our greatest need. And so, again, that's why if I'm a male, and I am a male, if I'm a male and I have this greatest God-given need of respect, that's actually easier for me to give. That's the reminder. Same would be true with a wife. What she really needs is this unconditional emotional love, so she's more willing to give that than she is respect. But if she gives the emotional love without the respect, we're going to look at that in a little bit, then we have chaos. And that's why many times we feel like as husbands and wives, we're missing each other. Next week, we're going to talk very specifically about how each of us express and need this emotional love and respect. But hear this. When left to selfish pride, we think our way is best. And so then we say to our spouse, I wish you could just be normal like me. I can't believe you respond that way, how you feel, what you sense that you need. I wish you could just be more like me. We react in negative ways towards our spouse when we are empty of what we actually need from this. And this creates this whole idea of a chaos cycle that we're going to be talking about in a second. But with that, I want to pause just for a second and go to some real practical understandings. Let's go to the largest reasons I believe men and women argue in a normal sense of life together. They don't see eye to eye. They don't show lack. They show a lack of love and respect. Again, because God has created us, not only how we feel, but really how we function. Our brains, our two hemispheres, let's go science for a little bit. We have two sides of our brains, two hemispheres. The way God has created women, they have more connections back and forth from the hemispheres, as corpus callosum. Somebody say, how do you even know that word? Our daughter, who was born with many challenges, who's still alive today but doesn't live with us, she was born and she doesn't have those receptors going back and forth. So we did some study. I understand it, but also all you got to do is be married and realize that wives, women are more connected, both sides. Everything they do is connected through emotion. Every event, every day event is connected emotionally, and that's the way God made females. I told you last week, you don't have to see somebody. You can just do an MRI scan of the brain and you know exactly, is this a male or is this a female? They're looking at those hemispheres, those corpus callosums, those connections. And so let's look at this because this is huge. We need to understand a man's brain is designed for compartmentalizing emotions, desires, goals, and daily tasks. Listen, ladies, maybe you already know this, but guys live in boxes. We move in boxes. But we have the ability to compartmentalize, which means the emotions of the day, the emotions of events, we're in the box, we're in the event, and it's not always connected to other emotions from other events. I'm going to say something here that so those of us who are younger getting married, this is going to be a lifesaver. This whole idea of a box really is how God has wired up men in really their whole life. We're going to look daily, but this is more specific. Guys, the way they're wired up in their boxes, they live in their boxes. This is also in life events, and they like to conquer. And so they get done with school, and they've completed the school thing, whatever education they want to stop at, and then they want to go on to the next thing, and they put all their efforts into that. And then somewhere down the line, they want to get married, so they start pursuing you. And they are in that box of, I got to get me a woman, which is the only reason why they're buying candy, they're buying roses. They're doing all this because they want to win the day. They want to win I want to find a partner for life box. And they go all in, and they can even barely think about it. Their boss is getting upset because it looks like you're just in love. I'm in love. And they're in this box, and they're going. And then finally one day he says, will you marry me? And she says, I will. This is incredible. And then they have the wedding. I've done so many weddings, and I see it all the time. And then about 2 weeks after the wedding is over, and they come back from the honeymoon, guess what husband's doing? He's going on to the next box. And now it's time to advance the career, become a better golfer, become a marathoner, become doing something else. And the wife is like, wait a minute, where's the roses? Where's the chocolates? Where's all the sweetness? He doesn't want to say it, so I'm going to say it for him. What he wants to say is, dude, I already got you. I won. It's time to move on. And there's no sense of connection back. That's a huge one. But let's think about a daily sense. God made men stronger with their testosterone, with natural ability to compartmentalize. And ladies, you want your husband to be able to compartmentalize in life. That's how God has wired them up. I would tell you this, as I was thinking through this, I've shared with you our daughter. I was telling some friends about this whole message series, and I'm always reminded, it has nothing to do with me specifically, but how God has wired men up. But when we were young with our daughter, when Ellie was very young, she was still living with us, with all of her medical challenges, the amount of times that we would have to rush into the van, find someone to watch Peyton drive to Duke on a Saturday afternoon, hook her up to all this stuff, all the different things they were going to do. We're there all night. And then the church was so very young, somewhere around midnight, 1 o'clock, I would drive back from Duke Hospital, leaving my wife and Ellie there, drive back, get home, maybe sleep for a little bit, take a shower, wake up, and come do church, come preach. This happened so many times. Why did I have the ability to do that? Because God's gifted men with the ability to compartmentalize. And everything is not always strung together. But let me kind of give you a sense of what this looks like on a daily basis. So the morning routine. A man's brain is designed for compartmentalization, emotions, desires, goals, and daily tasks. Let's walk through a normal day. A guy wakes up, and he's going to do his morning routine, whatever that may be. And while he's doing the morning routine, it may be coffee, it may be helping the kids get ready, whatever the morning routine is, he gets up, he's fully invested in that. And then after the morning routine is over, now he's going to be who God's called him to be. He's going to be a provider. And so now he's going to go to work. And even if he works inside the home, there's maybe another room he's going to go to, but he's now going to shift from his box of morning routine. Now he's going to go to his work day. And when he gets to his work day, guess what he's doing? He's working. And as he's working, he's not really thinking about the challenges that happened in the home. He's not thinking about what's getting ready to happen. He is doing the box. He is doing his daily task of working, and he's all in that moment. And then he continues on, and then maybe I put T-ball practice. And so he goes from work, and he's got a son or a daughter in T-ball. When he gets there, and maybe he's going to help coach. So now he's coaching, and he's doing T-ball. And when he's doing that, there's nothing from the morning routine that's connected, really nothing from work that's connected. He may have his phone there, and now it becomes an irritant. Why are they texting me and calling me when I'm doing T-ball stuff? And now T-ball stuff is over, so now he's going to get home to do his dinner and his dad duties, whatever that is. And as he's doing that, he is fully invested in that. That's what he's thinking about. There's really no emotion from what's happened throughout the day. He is doing this, and our compartmentalized brains are going from one box to the box to the box. They're connected just by time, and I'm moving through. And then finally, I get to the evening routine, whatever that is. And now the evening routine for the guy, there's nothing really from the morning or from work unless there's some type of device, and that becomes an irritant because he's all in and should be all in with his evening routine. And then he'll wake up and do the same thing. God has compartmentalized our brain. It functions like this. And the emotions of the day are not like a female. They're not connected. Everything is not connected. So what is a woman's brain? A woman's brain is designed for connecting emotions, desires, goals, and daily tasks. Each event is emotionally connected, is connected emotionally. And that's why a mom can be a great mom and be connected throughout the whole day because the emotions are all there. God made women more caring, more emotional, and they have the ability not to compartmentalize, but to connect everything and the emotions of what's going on. This is why females make great doctors and nurses, because they can have the emotion. I've been through, with our daughter, a lot of male doctors, and I understood it, but they had the bedside manners, the compassion of this stand right here. I'm like, my kid's dying, right? But they weren't emotionally connected. But the female doctors, nurses, didn't matter. They had the ability to emote. They had the ability to connect. Here's one for you. Because over the last 15, 20 years, our military is using more women who are being deployed. And now there's all types of challenges. And so they're doing the research. Think about it. Who is it easier to kiss their young kids goodbye and be deployed? A person who compartmentalizes or a person who brings the emotions with her? And now they're having these challenges, and the military is doing the research, trying to figure out something that God had already kind of showed them. Yes, my son's in the military. He's having a baby. One day if he has to give his baby a kiss and be deployed, that'll be an emotional, sad time. I'm sure it should be. But once he's engaged in doing what he's doing, he has the ability to compartmentalize and not bring that emotion. This would not be true. It doesn't matter what you feel. It doesn't matter what you think. It just matters what's true. This would not be true. They're already finding this out with the mom who kisses the kids goodbye and then deploys. So what does a normal day look like for the mom? Differently, there's no boxes. Everything is emotionally connected. And so the morning routine begins and she's emotionally connected. She's doing her things. But as the morning routine, whatever that is over, every emotion, every stressor is now not going to be compartmentalized. Now it's going to go to the next, which is the kids' school or work. Whatever she's engaged in, now we've added 2 lines. And when she gets to school, work, or whatever she's doing, whatever happens there, somebody is not being nice to her kid. The teacher said you forgot your homework or whatever. And maybe she does go to work and then she forgot to do something and there's emotions going on there. But she now is carrying with her the emotions, everything that's happening from the morning routine to kids' school work. And then now maybe she's going to go to sports practice too. Maybe dad's got the boys going to t-ball. She's going to go to softball or gymnastics or whatever it is. But as she begins to add things through her life, she's also adding the emotions. The call that she got from her mom that yes, the breast cancer is back. That's an emotion. But it's not a boxed emotion. It's connected to the other emotions. Now you just got emotions going through everything. And then she gets down here, and now it's time to do her dinner mom duties, whatever those are. And the same thing between practice and those, more texts came in, more stuff came in, and now there's more emotions. And unlike the husband who lives in boxes, everything she's experienced, every negative word, every happiness, every challenge, every whatever is all emotionally connected. Why? Because both sides of her brain, the hemispheres, are connected emotionally, and everything's firing at once. And then she gets home and has the evening routine. I think all of this makes sense. Now let's have some fun. Let's see what happens when the 2 become 1. Let's go back. You can already see the mess. The morning routine starts. And I'm just going to make this up, so if this is your life, it's not like I have a camera in your home. Just making this up. Because why? It's just life. The morning routine starts, and dad's got to get up. He's got to be uptown quick, but he's a good dad, so he's going to get up, and he's helping to get the kids going. And mom has a part-time job staying at home, but she also goes to work. But in the morning, the routine, now we're getting the kids ready. And then all of a sudden, the husband says something to the wife, which was not kind. It was not nice. He said something that totally ticked her off, and now there's an argument. But hey, we don't have time to argue now. We got things we got to do. We got to move to the next phase. So he goes, and in the transition from home to work, all of a sudden now he's going into his work box. As she moves into her next thing, she still cannot believe that the kid has the sniffles and that my husband said something that stupid. And so she's now going in, but was at this next phase of her day that she does get that text about the breast cancer in her mom that has come back. And so now she has that emotion. But then she also got the email from the teacher that her son is falling behind in his grades. And so at that moment then, she just needs somebody to talk to because it's going everywhere. And she's emoting, she's feeling it. So she calls her husband at work. That's a good idea. And so when she calls her husband at work, he's a good husband. He works at a job where he can answer the phone. So he pulls the phone. Yeah, what's up? Hey, I just want to tell you about, I can't believe what you said, this morning, like 3 hours ago. He's like, yeah, what'd I say? And my mom has cancer. He's not an idiot. He's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. And Johnny's grades, he's falling behind. He's like, honey, listen, I'm at a meeting. I got to go. Oh, you don't care? What? You don't care? No, I care. But if I get fired, honey, I got to go. Hang up. Now, she's going to continue on with her day. He gets done with work. He goes to t-ball practice. She goes to, let's say, softball practice. She still has all the emotions. They're doing practice. She's really not able to connect with the girls. She's helping with softball. As a matter of fact, she's not really coaching, so she's texting. She's doing different things. And she's knowing that when she gets home, she's going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation about what? We're going to have a conversation about what happened in the morning routine. And then we're going to have a conversation. We need to talk through what happened because of the school and my mom's cancer. And then she gets done with baseball practice or t-ball practice and softball practice, and then we get home, and now the kids got to get showered up. They got to get food. And now everything's there, and Dad is in the box mode, so he's joking and laughing. She's like, what do you think is so funny? Well, I just thought it was funny. The t-ball thing, that was kind of cool, but and then he says something really dumb, like, are we having hamburgers again? And all he means is exactly what he said. Are we having hamburgers again? It's just a question. Oh, no. Oh, it's not a question. It is an attack. Because what I don't understand is how the heck can you ask me about a hamburger? Did you know what you said to me on your way out while you were adjusting your tie? Did you know I called you in the middle of a very important meeting and you didn't even care that my mom has breast cancer again and that our son apparently is a wingnut. He can't keep up with the spelling. And so now you're like, hamburgers? And he's like, but I love hamburgers. I love hamburgers. They get done doing all of that. Wife is looking forward to getting the kids put to bed and then getting a shower. Husband, as he's ready to start transitioning from dad duties and all that kind of stuff, now he's ready to transition to hopefully a little business time. So as he transitions, everybody's taking showers. He's in evening routine. And that's when he's like, hey, you look really good in that old t-shirt you're wearing. And she's like, oh, no. Oh, no, don't even start that. We are not going to do that because, do you know what you said? And my mom's got cancer, and we have a stupid son, and the hamburger. Now, we're all laughing. Why? Because we've all been there, and what do? You grab your blanket, and you roll over. Oh, I'm done. I'm done. There'll be no business time. what kind of cruel God does that? What kind of cruel God? It's a God who understands that when the two become one, they're going to have to function in the totality of creation, and they will best be able to serve each other, love each other, and be successful with whatever family God gives them as they're both understanding how they function. Again, when you see the two designs up here, I already told you, when we were having our medical challenges with our daughter, you preaching? You running the church budget when we're 2 years old? Who's doing that? Well, I am. So I can't wallow around and cry all day. What? You got to function. How are you able to do that? Because that's how God created you. How is a wife able to do whatever she's doing? Stay at home, work, whatever, be a president, executive, don't care. How is she able to do that and still be able to function as a loving mom? Because her whole day is connected emotionally. This is how God has wired us up. And we need to understand all of these things because, again, we laugh about it because it's true, right? Now, as you think about these things here's some practical stuff, right? Here's one thing that a wife needs to understand about her husband, and if you have a drive home, it's great to be able to transition. These days we live out in Union County, and I use the bypass. The bypass is great because I'm going to have to transition from here, and now I can kind of mentally start transitioning. And I didn't do this in the first, 25 years of marriage, but the last couple of years. Hey, when I get home, what was he saying? Who's got cancer? And I just start going through it. You can use it to transition. I've talked to other guys, and they absolutely can do that, right? You can use that drive home to transition. But also, ladies, we need to also understand when your husband's at work or he's doing something, maybe he's just golfing with his buddies. You've heard that story before, right? Jim and Johnny go play golf. Johnny's wife has told your wife they're having some marital issues and thinking about separating. And so it's a good thing for you and Johnny to go play golf. You get done playing golf, your wife asks you, so how's their marriage doing? I don't know. He didn't talk about the fact that they're thinking about maybe splitting up, separating. There's challenges in the home? No. But what'd you do in the golf game? Played golf. So understanding this, ladies, when your husband is gone, he's at work, what we're going to learn here, we're going to see here, is that it's unkind and it goes against his creation for you to expect him to remember every emotion, everything you said since you were married. Just kidding. He's not going to. And when he's at work, he's at work. Doesn't he love me? Yes, he loves you. But everything is not emotionally connected. Does that make sense? It's huge. We've been married 31 years. Wonderful years. We still do this. Again, I have a son in the Navy. He's right now deployed and doing some stuff. I have a son in college. And my wife, every night, did you hear from one of the boys? Yeah. How they doing? Good. What'd they say? They said they're doing good. She's like, well, I wish you'd ask them more questions. I was like, I could. But the younger was going to say, yeah, it's good. Here's something you need to know, ladies. This just free. One of the boxes throughout the day that husbands has is a nothing box. So when you ask your husband what he did or what he's doing sometimes, he's just being truthful. Nothing. I'm literally in the nothing box. So we need to understand this, and then we begin to apply biblical principles, because we show a lack of love or respect when we view normal challenges through our gender lens. Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, he calls this looking through pink and blue glasses. And we show a lack of love and respect when we see everything. We expect our husbands or our wives to respond and act like we do. They're not going to. The brain is not connected. It's selfish and prideful to expect your spouse to act and respond like you. I like what Eggridge says. He says, don't let pink and blue differences turn into black and white choices. Sometimes it's just the way you're viewing the world. Sometimes it's just the way you're viewing parenting, how you're viewing. So don't take the differences, which are God created pink and blue, and then move to very black and white, sometimes harmful decisions. When responding, we are to emulate Jesus, not respond to the actions of our spouse. Here's something for all of us. When you see your spouse, you're Christians, when you see your spouse and you know there's a challenge, look to the right of your spouse and just see Jesus. Respond how Jesus would want you to respond, and don't react to maybe what your spouse is doing. So we got all of that. Remember I told you you're going to have that crazy cycle? Now, knowing everything that you know, let's introduce what Emerson Eggridge calls his crazy cycle. And this is the idea, if you go back to our day, right? When you go back to our day, this is the ability to say, I don't feel loved. Well, I don't feel respected. You see, she needs his love to feel close, to feel open and vulnerable, to feel understood, to feel like she wants to commit and to feel adored. He needs her respect to feel like he wants to go and work and achieve because she's respecting the fact of who I am and literally what I do. It's a misnomer, psychological challenge for people to say, my identity is in Christ. That is true. And I am not what I do. That's not really true. Maybe not specifically that specific job, but as a man, you've been wired up to work, to provide. And so you want to be respected as that provider, that person who's sacrificing, going in those boxes. And so yes, our identity is in Christ, and maybe not one specific job is our identity, but our ability to provide, our ability to sacrificially do what we're supposed to be doing. He needs her respect to do that, to feel like he's protecting, providing, to serve, to lead out in emotional intimacy. A healthy marriage is desiring to serve the other because of Christ and the commitment. That's a healthy marriage. It's to be selfless. It is to understand who you are and understand who your spouse is and how God has created us. And so as we're reacting in this crazy cycle, you can see this here, without love, she reacts. Without respect, she reacts. And all of a sudden now, you have this crazy cycle going on. We'll talk more about this next week in meeting needs. But we're talking about love and respect. But also, we just talked about how your brain is wired up. When she does not feel loved, she will then react. And even if she doesn't know it, intuitively she knows it. So she is going to, I don't feel loved. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold off in showing you what you most need and desire, which is respect. Well, heck. You're not showing me the respect I need. You're expecting me to act like a woman. So if I'm not getting the respect, what's he do? Then I'm going to stop showing the unconditional emotional love, and it is a crazy cycle. I'm not even going to ask those of us who have married to raise your hands who's been in that cycle, because we all probably would raise our hands. We've been in that cycle. And we understand that cycle. And then all of a sudden, when we lose, and these are the biblical tools, when we lose the ability of humility, we lose, and we don't want to be selfless. We want to be selfish. We don't want to be humble. We want to be prideful. And so, okay, yeah, you're going to withhold that. You're not going to give me that, whatever the needs may be. We'll go into that more next week. You're not going to do that. You're not showing me that respect. But absolutely, I'm not going to show you that kind of love. It's in this moment, we think about our boxes, that a lot of husbands will go from work and then stop off at the bar or stop off at the driving range or stop off somewhere else because they don't want to go home. They'd rather just be enjoying that box because they can actually get in that box and cut out the emotions. And then when I get back home, I'll dive back into that crazy cycle box. And so we need to have humility and selflessness as we're moving through this. Look at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 8. This is at the end of a whole other section on marriage. Finally, all of you be like-minded and sympathetic, love one another, and be compassionate and humble. Not paying back evil for evil or insult for insult, but on the contrary, give a blessing since you were called for this, so that you may inherit a blessing. And again, that's talking about church in general, but when he says right here, finally, that whole verses before that was all about marriage and husbands and wives getting together. And so what's he saying? When you get in that cycle, see Christ. You don't give an insult for an insult. You don't talk poorly about somebody because they talk poorly about you. You don't pay back evil for evil. And in this vicious cycle, I would say this. Hopefully both would come to their Christian senses. But in all of my years of walking through this, doing it my own self, at some point when this crazy cycle is just going, and it's heading somewhere you don't want it to head, I tell men all the time, this is where you step up and you be Christ. You be the selfless person who will sacrifice and die for your spouse. And you have the spiritual ability to say, at this point in my marriage, you're not meeting any of my needs. You're driving me crazy. We're not getting along. I don't even like being here. But Christ in me, I will give you what you need. I will be everything Christ has called me to be, even though you're not filling my own tank. You're not giving that to me. At some point, that's the male role. If it's going crazy and no one's really doing it, then the husband has to step up and become the person, because we don't want the enemy to take what is normal and created by God and then twist it. And that's what he does with all of this, boxes and the connectors and love and respect. And next week we talk about how we all feel love and express love. It's different. God created that way, but then the enemy wants us to take God's creativity that actually works for our best and turn it against our spouse. And we begin to say something, if my spouse did this or that, my life would be better. If he or she would do these three things, my life would be better. That could be true, but you can only do and control you. Now, you can begin to help your spouse by giving respect and love. We'll talk more about that next week. But our tools are this. We have to make sure, last week was the Bible. This is prayer. This is prayer. Therefore, confess your sins one to another and pray for one another that you may be healed. So we had some fun today, but I know that many of us are in a challenging marriage. And we need to make sure that we're praying for our spouse, praying for ourselves that God would fill us with his love and his compassion, his respect, if you want to use that idea, so that we can then give what is needed by us, because of the filling and the strength that comes from God. This whole idea is wrapped up. As we just go today, I'm going to give you some fun things. We had some fun today, so I was kind of thinking of some ways to memorize what we're talking about, really, right? These are spiritual things. Today's biblical marriage tools: sacrificing scissors. Stick it in your tool belt. Sacrificing scissors to cut out your selfishness. That's a biblical thing. You're not going to be happily married if you're selfish. Humility hammer to break your gender-biased reactions. Husbands, we act stupidly when we complain about the fact that our wife is emotionally connected to everything. We know we don't like it. We know we don't understand it. But to respond in a bad way is not healthy nor biblical. So take the humility hammer and break your gender-biased reactions. Start responding to your spouse as you would to Christ, as he's instructed us to do. And the last one is grace glasses, so that you see Jesus standing next to your spouse. That's a huge one. Grace glasses. So as the cycle, crazy cycles going on, or things are going on, that you see your spouse standing right next to Jesus. How can you do that? It's because of grace. We need it. We're glad God gave it. And so we're each going to give our spouse grace. Let's pray. God, thank you for speaking through your word. God, helping us to understand just in a practical way. God, I pray that you would allow people here to understand, all of us to understand, that the things we're going through, unless they're just incredibly abusive, are just normal, daily ways of trying to be together because the two have become one. And we're so vastly different. But it's in our differences that we are more like you. And so God, help us. Give us your strength to be able to understand and to use these biblical tools of humility, forgiveness, selflessness, to be sacrificial, to serve. We ask in your name. Amen.